It's time for that Monday Night Raw review that saw Sonia Deville officially under investigation by WWE upper management. Ezekiel takes a lie detector test from Kevin Owens. Edge and Damian Priest attack AJ Styles in the locker room. We have a new United States champion. And yes, we are going to open the show by talking about the commitment ceremony. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting open to the show. Let's get it all started right now.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is the one that everybody wants, me. Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore! Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Monday Night Raw review on the WWE Podcast. It is Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. Appreciate everybody taking some time to be with us here today, tonight, whatever morning, afternoon, whatever time it may be for you. Thank you. And we have got a lot to cover with Monday Night Raw that I thought was a very productive Raw. May not have been my favorite Raw, and certainly there were a segment or two that didn't exactly tickle my fancy. I'll just put it very nicely and professionally like that. And we're gonna definitely dive into that. But before I do, I want to give a shout out to our latest patron who has joined us over, of course, on Patreon. Where else? And that is Evan and Matthew's Collectible Toy Collection. Yep, that is the name. And Evan and Matthew's Collectible Toy Collection. Thank you for real. Thank you for joining us here on the WWE Podcast. You have gotten yourself into a tier that you can view video that I will be publishing a brand new one tonight. And it's going to be about Stone Cold Steve Austin and the actual real possibility of him returning at WrestleMania 39. Not just my speculation, not just dirt that has been picked up by the dirt sheets. They even still call them dirt sheets, but rather real sources. And what do I mean by real sources? I mean the man himself, straight from the horse's mouth. Stone Cold Steve Austin commented on this. And we're going to have a quick video on that. Just a couple of minutes that I'll be doing, that I'll be covering Stone Cold Steve Austin's potential return to WrestleMania 39 in LA. So you're not going to miss that. You can join Evan and Matthew's Collectible Toy Collection and everyone else over at Patreon. If you want to get an ad-free experience and you don't want to deal with all the plugs and everything, you can get yourself ad-free in the door for $1, as well as on Apple Podcasts. There's a subscribe button on Apple for 99 cents a month. And on our website at www.podcast.com, you can go VIP and get yourself ad-free everything, including the video. The video is included on our website, so you're not going to want to miss that if you are interested. So I also did do a part 2, or an episode 2, of WWE Podcast After Dark. That was released a couple of days ago. And let me just say, I think it was a decent follow-up to my first After Dark. And what are the topics at hand? An extremely inappropriate spring break story, part 2, and some of the things that really just really get me angry. There's the only way I can put it. That's not an R-rated verbiage. So check out the After Dark podcast. That's only available also on Patreon and our website at www.podcast.com if you want to go VIP there. So if you want to get After Dark, it is certainly not for the family, okay? It is for adult ears only, and I cannot stress that enough. If you're listening to the After Dark show on Patreon or on our website, please make sure you're not doing it on, the ride to school, right? Or you're not at work with this. If you have headphones on, I guess it's okay. But let me just make sure that you understand what kind of podcast After Dark is. It's exactly what it sounds like it is, okay? So anyway, I'd like to offer that invitation, extend the invitation to anybody who wants a little bit more of an adult content and just, man, does this guy ever cuss? Does he ever say the F word? Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. I mean, definitely. Then you get to hear that and a lot more in graphic detail on the After Dark show. And yeah, so tomorrow, guys, we are going to be, I still believe I'm still on for an interview. That will be posted later tomorrow, as well as the mailbag. It's going to be a busy day for me tomorrow night with the mailbag and interview that I'll be doing back to back. So definitely a busy night for me, but great for you guys if you love content. And I Really excited to be able to share both of those with you. By the way, if you want to join the mailbag, email us at realwwepodcast, at gmail.com, or mailbag at wwepodcast.com. So we're also trying to get t-shirts up. Okay. This is the last bit of housekeeping, guys, and I'm going to jump into Raw. I know I do this every time. Some of you probably skip the first 5 minutes, and I get it. But on our website, I'm trying to get our t-shirt sales up, like for just our logo and things. You can also get a t-shirt if you are subscribed on the higher tiers of Patreon. For 3 months, you get a mug and a t-shirt. But I also want to be able to allow you guys to buy them directly through us. And if you're interested, because we have our logo, we have some, not just my logo, but other things that we're going to sell on there. And I'm trying to get it up and running, and I am not exactly a web designer, let me just put it that way, and it seems to be much more complicated than I had first imagined. I want to get us up on ProWrestlingTees.com, but they keep rejecting me for the simple fact that they think I'm affiliated with WWE or pretending that I am, and I'm not, and I've made that very clear. So I'm going to try ProWrestlingTees.com because they are the easiest possible solution. So I'm going to see if they have somebody I can speak to. Anyway, my point is, if you're interested in t-shirts and anything else, we're trying to get that up and running, but it's available on Patreon if you are subscribed for 3 months or more on our higher tiers. All right, let's start out with that segment that it just went too long. And that segment, of course, is the commitment ceremony that saw Reginald and Dana Brooke, as well as Tamina and Akira Tozawa in a commitment ceremony hosted by R-Truth, along with a cast of characters that have nothing else going on creatively, so they were stuck out there because nothing else is going on. Although I have to say the women's tag team champions out there for this segment made no sense, as well as it made no sense with Austin Theory having people come out and celebrate him. Why? What? We'll get to that in a minute with Austin Theory and the United States Championship. But this in particular, this commitment ceremony, can we not say double wedding? Like what? Maybe it's because it had to do with the 24/7 title. Maybe I missed the whole premise. And if I did, somebody out there is going to yell at me, and that's fine. Because it's not a lot of times the 24/7 title is not on the Hulu version, and I watch the Hulu version and then still try to catch up on the things that I missed that fell through the cracks of Hulu. But I don't remember ever this being a thing where people decided that having a commitment ceremony would somehow also have something to do with the 24/7 title. Now, the 24/7 title was showcased on stage, so to speak, and everyone was getting married-ish, or were they just committing to not challenge each other for the 24/7 title? I think that was the premise. Maybe I am mistaken. Either way, whatever the premise was that they were trying to feed to us, the only saving grace of this entire segment was R-Truth. The only segment of this that saved anything was R-Truth, because R-Truth, and WWE knows this, is always good for a laugh. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean it in a very complimentary, comedy is extremely hard to do way, because very few wrestlers, not performers, like I called out by DJ Kuzmo. So I've been drinking the WWE Kool-Aid too. I hear performers so much that eventually I guess I got worn down. And I just went with performers. The wrestlers, sorry. I really am. I'm embarrassed that I was saying performers last week. But my point is that for most wrestlers, comedy does not come easy. It is extremely hard to do, which is why there are so few comedians selling out stadiums and things. Very few. It's not easy. And R-Truth possesses the comedy quality. And I wanted to make that point clear when I say he's good for a laugh. That's what I mean. In a complimentary way. But he really was the only saving grace of this segment, because I don't care if they were actually supposed to get married or they were just committing to each other that they wouldn't challenge each other for the 24/7 title, whatever the hell this was. Okay. And you have the weird cast of characters that WWE decided needed to be out there to make it look like a commitment/wedding. I don't know. And then R-Truth, I think the best part of this whole thing, and there is actually a best part, the funniest part, if there is one, is when R-Truth said, "By the power in my vest." And he said that a couple of times. Like, instead of the power invested in me, he said, and by the power in my vest. I cracked up. He said it a couple of times. Even the King on commentary was laughing at that. And I enjoy the King being very subdued on commentary too. He's filling in for Corey Graves, who's on his honeymoon. I think he's back next week. And the King on commentary, I have to say, was very subdued, very under the radar, and that's a good thing. Because I'm a fan of a two-man booth anyway. When you add three, there's just too many. It gets overcrowded. There's too much traffic. So I think that having the King be under the radar and letting the guys do what they do was a smart move. Whether that was intentional or not, that's how it came off. But my point is about this segment, that was probably the best part of it. Now, where things really got awful for me was everybody's switching up. Like Tamina was playing hot potato with everybody. Like they were trying out different combinations of people. Why? I mean, the best part of it was when the crowd cheered because Tamina was trying to commit to or marry Dana Brooke, and people cheered that. Even Dana Brooke seemed to be on board. And boy, couldn't you specifically hear the male audience cheering that? It reminded me of the old days. A little HLA for those of you in the Eric Bischoff era. The HLA. Just imagine HLA. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, Google that acronym. Okay, HLA stands for something that it would get up. I mean, it would be, people would go to WWE headquarters with knives and pitchforks. I mean, it'd be a bad day at the office if WWE ever brought that back. But I mean, that was only 20 years ago, not forever ago. But anyway, it felt a little bit retro. And then we even had R-Truth say, was that PG? You know, he even kind of questioned it. R-Truth was the only glue that held this mess together. I don't understand any of it. And then we had Reginald turn on Dana to win the belt. And then I think Tamina won it. And then Akira Tozawa. And then we had Dana Brooke win it back from Akira Tozawa and run out of the ring as still 24/7 title, a 24/7 champion. So, I mean, this to me is just, you either love this kind of crap or you hate it. You either love it, you love this entertainment, you love the E in WWE, or you minimize the E and you love the second W. I think oftentimes WWE forgets they have two W's. They're not just world entertainment. They forget the middle part. They would love you to forget the middle part. They would love to have you forget that WWE actually stands for something. They would love to have you forget that the word wrestling does not exist in their name. They would love to make you believe that, and they'd love to make you forget that it actually does. So, for me, it's the second W with a sprinkle of E, because you got to have a little bit of the E. This, to me, was way too long. I mean, the segment went on way too long. The fact that they cut this part out, or they added this to Hulu was, I mean, they must have felt proud of this segment or something. I really don't know who is the judge and jury for what goes on Hulu and what doesn't. I would imagine their production team, right? I mean, I'm sure Vince has a big say. I'm sure the head of production and TV production does, head of creative, whoever those individuals may be at this time. It seems like it'd be a revolving door, especially in creative. So I don't know. I'd love to know who and how and what is decided of what goes on Hulu, what isn't. Is it decided beforehand, or is it decided post-production when they're like, yeah, that looked like crap, let's not put that on TV, or this isn't really important, let's not put this on Hulu. So, all right, well, let's move on. To me, this was if I was going to give this segment a grade, it'd be a D+. And the only thing that's keeping it from an F is R-Truth. That's it. This is a D+ segment. And I'm very curious to see this week in Memphis, Mark, if you're listening, or Tennessee Ted, I don't care, one of you two, if you want to comment on this segment, I would love to hear it. Or do I want to? I don't know if I do. I really don't. Because when I watched this segment, all I could think of was the hatred that you have for the 24/7 title, and it made me laugh. So I'm interested to hear if you can refrain from 4-letter words. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. All right, well, let's move on, and let's get to another segment here. I'm going to try to find one I didn't hate, which actually there were a lot of. That is, let's see, Sonia Deville explained herself, inserting herself into the championship match against Bianca Belair. Belair interrupted pretty quickly, and Deville told Belair that she can't touch her until the match, or she'd be assaulting a WWE official. Belair looked like she was going to defy her and lifted Deville for a KOD, but just kind of tossed her off, didn't actually complete the move when Deville threatened to strip her of the Raw Women's Championship. So I have to say, why are we still buying this narrative? I mean, it made Naomi look like a fool. I mean, for months, it made Naomi look like an absolute tool bag. And Naomi shouldn't, because I made a case, by the way, for Naomi being a women's champion over Ronda Rousey. I think that is a good thing. I made that case on the Week in Review, and I think that I stand by that. But my point is, for months and months and months, it went on for like 6 months with Sonia Deville and Naomi. Sonya, hid behind her suit and said, when I'm wearing this, I'm an official. When I'm not, then no. That'd be like me going to work, okay, and saying, well, when I'm wearing a tie, I'm your supervisor. When I come in just a polo shirt, I'm not your supervisor. That's not how like reality works for all of us, okay, here on Earth. That's not how it works. Apparently, in this alternate universe, you can just put a jacket on and off, and apparently you just change roles. That's not how the corporate world works. But now we're seeing it again, the same narrative being pushed on Bianca, and she at least came, very close to defying Sonia Deville. But if anybody just had two brain cells to rub together in creative, they would say, why the hell isn't anyone going to upper management or to Vince and saying this is BS? Like, just take her out. How many times did we see her in the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, even into sometimes into the PG era, where we'd have people attack authority figures, and there'd be repercussions, but there's always a way to get around you're fired. You lay your hands on me, you're fired. Yeah, okay, right? Like, just, I don't know. It's making the baby faces look stupid. In this case, it's not as egregious as Naomi. At least Bianca thought about it, but didn't want to put her career on the line or jeopardize her Raw Women's Championship. I don't know. Or whatever the case may be. Adam Pearce did at least say to Sonya after this segment that she is being investigated internally. Good. This should have happened, a freaking year ago, but at least it's now better than never. And that she did fine Sonia Deville or fine Bianca Belair, which ended up being $1, which shows you where Adam Pearce's loyalties lie. Adam Pearce now seems to be the light battling the darkness of Sonia Deville in the management side of things. And by the way, Sonya on her promo said that she didn't wake up wanting to be an official. Well, how exactly did that happen? Again, I've said this for over a year. They will never explain it. They will never. How does somebody just transition instantly from a wrestler to a actual WWE official and have the ability to just abuse their power on a weekly basis with nobody saying boo about it? I mean, did the board just turn their heads for the last year and go, well, unless anybody complains, we're not going to do anything about it. Anyway, I'm digging into the weeds here, but at least they didn't. I don't think this made Bianca look like a fool, but it did you did still want Bianca to be defiant and put herself out there and say, no, you attacked me last week. See, that's the thing. This is probably the biggest thing I have, the hang up I have. And this is just so ridiculous. And this actually applied to Naomi's storyline with her too, is that Naomi Sonya Deville attacked Bianca last week. So tell me again why exactly not only is Sonya Deville still not fired as an official or fined or both, and why can't Bianca Belair return in kind? Like, there's no self-defense that applies here. There's no, physical provocation rule that, many WWE officials, including Stone Cold for many years as a GM, co-GM, sheriff had. I know we're talking, 19, 18, 17 years ago, but still, it just doesn't make any sense that you can have your manager. Imagine this, right? You go to work and your boss just assaults you. I mean, beats you to a pulp. And then the next day you come in, you don't file charges. You don't ask for a fine. Nothing happened. There's no penalty. You come in the next day and then they're hiding behind their title saying you can't touch me or you're fired, essentially. Yeah, well, I think you forfeited that when you assaulted me yesterday. So to me, I mean, this is just, I don't know why they're holding that so high in regard above every other thing that they could be doing, that you can't touch Sonya Deville because, well, I have my jacket on. It's just, I don't know. This internal investigation, there's nothing to investigate. I mean, you have exhibit A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. You have, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Like, you have everything. I mean, there's a zillion examples that management could be looking at if this was a real investigation. Of course, I'm ranting about something that's not real, but you guys catch my drift. Either way, I mean, look, the one thing I will say is that I enjoy Sonia Deville a lot on the mic. She's a good heel. She got really good heat from the crowd. Bianca, I think, is going to work well with her. I don't think Sonya's going to win the belt, but it's not impossible. I have to say, I don't think it's impossible that Sonya Deville wins the belt at Backlash. I don't think it is. I wouldn't say it's probable. I would say it's not impossible. So it's going to be a fun time, I think, with these two. And I hope the investigation, I mean, it should have came back instantly. Like, what more is there to do beyond looking, just even if you only just looked at last week, never mind the 13 other months that she abused her power on a weekly basis, particularly with Naomi for 6 months. But just looking at one incident last week, assaulting, unprovoked, a WWE wrestler for no reason should have been more than enough to boot her ass out of that position. So again, there shouldn't be an investigation. That's incompetence on the board's part. Anyway, I'm pretending this is real, which makes it fun. Okay, so let's get on here. Veer Mahan. Yeah, Veer Mahan watch. Oh, yeah, buddy DJ. Veer Mahan was on Raw, although not on Hulu, if you care about such things. He defeated Jeff Brooks with the cervical clutch. It's the same thing he did to Dominic the week before about not letting go of that clutch. He just continued to lock it in and try to injure his opponents. I didn't have a problem with this. It seems to be the slow build for him where there's going to be a lot of these local enhancement talents that come up and are essentially there to just take a beating and leave. And WWE pays them, $500 and, hey, have a good night. Thanks for taking your beating and your lumps. See ya. I mean, that probably is what they're doing here with local talent. And eventually he'll graduate to actual, on main roster talent, start low and work his way up. But it seems to be a slow build, and I'm cool with that. I want them to be very confident in who and what Veer Mahan is, if they have a long-term plan. Okay, let's see here. Ezekiel passed the Kevin Owens lie detector test. Yes, proving that he is not Elias. The test was conducted by Chad Gable. I didn't hate this, I have to say. Now, I did make reference last week and the week before, and even this week, that Kevin Owens has fallen into the ether. Now, when you compare that to Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? Like, you are the person on the other side of the ring from Stone Cold Steve Austin in his return match from 19 years ago. I mean, that is the pinnacle of Kevin Owens' career. I really don't believe Kevin Owens will have a bigger WrestleMania moment. Even if he wins the WWE Championship. No. To me, I could retire if I was Kevin Owens and be so totally happy. I mean, that's how big of a moment that this is, and he will carry that for his entire life and his career. That he had a match with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was the one that coaxed him into convinced him enough to come back. He is that guy, and it's really a hell of a story. That one that I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about in the years to come. It's cool. It's really cool. So, but anyway, going from that to Ezekiel, I did say last week and the week before that this was a fall off a cliff, right? Essentially. And yeah, I guess it is in terms of name viability, in terms of just overall storyline position, the fact that he's not even on the Hulu cut now. But that said, this is starting to, I guess, kind of warm up to me. And I think a lot of that has to do with Kevin Owens' all-in approach on things. Kevin Owens has a very all-in approach, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Kevin, even though he knows that we all know that he has gone from Stone Cold Steve Austin to Ezekiel. But his effort makes a difference here. And him being obsessed with trying to prove that Ezekiel is Elias is kind of funny and starting to grow on me a little bit. It's not the best thing on Raw by far, but I'm on board for it right now. Okay, so, and this clearly is going to result in a match between Ezekiel and Kevin Owens. Yeah, which we'll see. All right. Ezekiel then challenged Chad Gable, but he did defeat him via disqualification after interference from Otis, because Otis attacked Ezekiel after it looked like he had the match won. So it's kind of your standard WWE disqualification result here. So Ezekiel remains undefeated, as he probably will for a while, and Chad Gable continues his losing streak. I mean, Chad Gable's on a terrible losing streak, I have to say. Okay. The Women's Tag Team Championship. Naomi and Sasha Banks defeat Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley via pinfall. This is one of the places I'm reading here that reviewed this. And I know some of you don't like when I do this, but because you think I'm just being lazy and I didn't see the match, I don't know my own analysis. Yeah, well, guess what? My show, my rules. All right, anyway, one of the places I'm looking called this a sloppy match. I don't think this was sloppy. I don't. This was not. I didn't think this was a clean, crisp, like wrestling clinic, one that would be and should be viewed by wrestling students across the world. But I mean, I wouldn't call it sloppy. I think that's a little harsh. It was okay. I think the match was okay. But the biggest point of this was not just that Naomi and Sasha retained their women's tag team titles, but it's the reaction from Rhea Ripley, who snapped on Liv Morgan, who blamed her for the loss, and then attacked her from behind. That is the story here. It's not necessarily the story about Naomi and Sasha Banks retaining. I mean, that is significant because I think there was some people that believed Liv and Rhea could be on target for a run with the titles, but rather the heel turn by Rhea Ripley. That seems to be the story. And it's good news if you're a Rhea fan. It's good news if you're a Rhea fan. And honestly, if you're a Liv Morgan fan too. And amazingly, guys, think about this. We had 4 women's tag teams before WrestleMania. They magically came up with 4 to have a fatal 4-way to create the illusion that there was an actual women's tag team division. 2 of those 4. What did I say? Following WrestleMania, what did I say, guys? I said, look out. They're going to dissolve these teams quick because they need their single stars back. Because that's what they truly are. By nature. Not tag teams. And lo and behold, we have 2 of the 4 who have dissolved. In Carmella and Queen Zelina. And now you have Rhea and Liv who have gone bye-bye. It's amazing. And now we're going to be limited down to a very select few that actually can challenge for those beloved women's tag team championships. Oh, good grief. But the match was okay. But again, good news if you're a Rhea or Liv fan, because they are now both on their own after they get through their program, however long it takes, probably 1 or 2 months at least. Then they'll be back off on their own. And I think that Liv Morgan likely has a higher ceiling than does Liv Morgan, or Rhea Ripley has a higher ceiling than Liv Morgan does at this point. Given that Rhea Ripley has not been in a singles role for a while, she's been on the kind of the back burner. Liv Morgan has had several women's championship matches and she's lost them all. I foresee Rhea Ripley coming out of this victorious and being awarded a women's championship matchup. It only makes sense too, given that we have Bianca Belair, who is a babyface, and Rhea and Bianca put on excellent matches. And remember the Royal Rumble, not this past year, but in 2021, their ending of the Royal Rumble was far superior to the men's, and they can go. And I'm very curious and interested to see Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, which is where they're headed. That's the point of this, because they're trying to line up the next opponent for Bianca, and I think that's going to be Rhea Ripley. Okay. Let's continue on. We have up next the Street Profits, who took on RK Bro. They beat RK Bro with a doomsday device on Riddle, and then the Profits admitted to tricking RK Bro by by playing the Usos music during the match, which caused a distraction and allowed them to get the victory. First of all, if anybody else calls it the Usos, again, it's not Y-O-U, it's just U-S. Okay? Uso. They even have, if by the way you don't know the pronunciation, their entrance music even tells you how to pronounce it every time. And yet somehow people still say Uso. Now, Kofi Kingston would say it on purpose that way because he's a total just obnoxious D-bag character. But it seems as if Montez Ford didn't mean to say it, at least on purpose, and he said Uso. Can people just not pronounce Uso? I mean, how much easier does it get? Uso. Okay, anyway. But was this a heel turn by the Street Profits? Or was this just more them trying to get themselves in the mix by saying, hey, we're here too. Pay attention to us. You know, I do wonder. Let me know what you guys think about that. I really don't know if I would classify this as a heel turn. They didn't really cheat to win. And by the way, how did they cue the music? And how did they know when to hit it? Even if they could. I mean, did they have somebody in the production truck? Did they have a conversation before and say, hey, when we're in trouble, hit the Usos music? I would imagine, right? That's the only thing we can think of. Because how else did they do it? Telepathically? You know, I've never heard of that before. But I get the narrative. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because they're trying to say, hey, we're here too. You know, that's what I think. I don't believe, if you're going to ask me, I don't think this is a heel turn personally. But I mean, it was heelish. It was heelish, but I don't think it was a full turn. That's my take on it. But again, another distraction finish from music. I mean, it's amazing how many music distraction finishes there are in WWE. There's quite a few. There really is. But anyway, this match was fine with the Street Profits defeating RK Bro. I didn't have any issue with it. You know, it's formulaic. You have Riddle who gets beat down, and he gives the hot tag to Orton, who comes in and does his patented power slam, and they go for the RKO. It's almost the same format every single match for these two. I'm complaining and I'm not, because the formula works, but it's also extremely, well, by definition, formulaic, predictable. So, all right, let's see here. We also got Edge and Damian Priest, who attacked Styles in the locker room. And this was after Edge and Damian Priest had a promo, really Edge cutting the promo, and said that this is something that he's been subdued and suppressed, and something that was born and seeded all the way back from the Brood days. So I like that. I really like that, actually. That makes total sense to me. He's still trying to entrench the mountain of omnipotence in our minds, and Edge just, I think, knocked it out of the park in this promo. I thought it was very well done, well said. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I really did. I thought that Edge did a great job, and also I think Edge addressed the fact that, you know, look where Damian Priest was, playing second fiddle to Bad Bunny. Didn't get a match this year in WrestleMania, and now he's here. You know, it's all very real stuff. And I love that. I loved that. And Edge really did a great job. And he's so good. I would say right now he might be the best promo on Raw. I really do. So, good explanation here. And then they beat down AJ Styles in the locker room after Styles, as expected, accepted Edge's challenge for a match at WrestleMania Backlash. And the key here was that the both of them, Damian and Edge, slammed Styles' arm in a locker several times, which is going to lead to clearly an arm injury. And I do wonder if it's the phenomenal forearm arm. And if it is, what does AJ Styles do to overcome that in the next couple of weeks before the pay-per-view, before the live event, which is on May 8th. By the way, guys, May 8th, Mother's Day. So don't forget that. I thought about that the other day. I'm like, whoa, WWE, what a great Mother's Day gift, right? Now, I know my mom would love a pair of wrestling tickets. You know, say, hey, Mom, I got us tickets to Backlash. I mean, she would look at me like, what's a backlash? Right? She has no idea. So, all right. Well, I can't say enough about Edge right now, and Damian Priest coming along for the ride. So far I like it. I have nothing bad to say about this at all. I think AJ Styles also should probably get a little bit more promo time, by the way. I got to say, AJ Styles feels like he needs to talk more instead of interrupting him. There's no need to. AJ's decent on the mic. I think he's a step below Edge, but he's still very respectable, even good at times, if not very good at times. I've seen really good promos, particularly when he was facing off against John Cena several years ago. Okay. The United States Championship. Theory defeated Finn Balor to win the championship, notably clean, by the way. There was no hocus pocus or belts or pulling on the tights or foreign objects, nothing. This was a clean victory for Theory, which I think was a good, here we go, message to send to fans that this is not a guy that needs help to win all the time. Even if you hate him, you have to respect him. And I think that was the message they were trying to send to us. And this was, as you'd expect, how can you have a bad match with Theory and Balor? I mean, my God, you can't. You can't. I mean, two guys that, it's like Austin. I think Austin Theory is just a bulkier Finn Balor. They look the same almost. Balor's just a smaller version of Theory. And both of them are really good in their own right. I would actually say Finn Balor's a better promo for sure. But so what happened is Theory hit the A-Town down to get the win. What does that mean, by the way? A-Town? Are we talking about Atlanta? Like the ATL? Like what? I don't. Maybe I don't understand the meaning behind it. Like A-Town down. He's even got like some gang sign symbol for it. I'm doing it right now. Like I don't even have. Like I don't know what it is. But the weird part. There's a couple of weird parts to this. Number one that no one's talking about is how did he obtain this matchup? He just was awarded it. I could have missed it completely. And if I did, please call me out. You guys love doing that. It's all good. How exactly was he awarded this match? Number two, how did Finn Balor not even get a promo before this match? Nothing. He's gotten zero mic time. That's a red flag, by the way, if you are, if you're concerned about a star either being demoted, put on the back burner, or even pink slipped down the line, is you see a steady decrease in their mic time. Because there's one thing to have them lose every once in a while. You can always bounce back with several wins and then you go on a winning streak, a hot streak, and that losing streak is forgotten. But when you're not even able to speak and they take the mic away from you, that's usually a telltale sign that you're not exactly a priority right now. I mean, they're not even giving Finn the terrible pre-taped 30-second promos that they play during entrances. It's not good right now. I mean, how can you not give Finn Balor some kind of mic time here? The only thing they did was for Theory, and they played a pre-created video package for him on his career. Short one, thus far. So, this was, I mean, really good match, of course. It was totally fine. It's just, there's nothing from Finn Balor's end. Nothing. And he's the champion. So, weird, but let's move on here to what do I have here? The Seth Rollins' plan. He tried to sucker Cody into the same situation that he had to face at WrestleMania, which was an unknown opponent. He didn't know who to expect, so that's why I lost. And so the end result of the promo at the beginning of Raw was to put Cody in that same exact situation where I'm going to pick your opponent. You're not going to know who it is until I pick him, right? And it ended up being Kevin Owens. And so, by the way, I think we can officially say that the brand split's dead. Can we just move past, stop fooling ourselves? The announcers aren't even pretending anymore. They're not saying, oh my God, he's from SmackDown. What's he doing here? They don't even bother with that anymore. They were probably told, don't bother. I imagine that they're just trying to quietly do it. I know they're unifying championships. That's not exactly a quiet thing, but they're slowly bringing in people every week from both shows that shouldn't be on that show, with no explanation, no even acknowledgement that they shouldn't be there because they're not from that brand. I think officially we can say the brand split's dead. I mean, what other conclusion can we draw at this point? I mean, I know WWE wants to have their cake and eat it too, which they're famous for with these brand splits, but this is the most egregious. If they're trying to still pretend, if they're still in that mindset, of trying to fool us that there's a brand split. This is the most egregious violation of their brand split I've ever seen. Ever. So anyway, Kevin Owens is the mystery opponent for Cody. This match was fine. You know that the chemistry between Rollins and Owens is really good, by the way. Or Cody Rhodes and Owens. I mean, what did you expect? The one thing I would say is Jimmy Smith, who said, and did anybody else catch this? I almost tweeted it out, but I was just too tired and lazy. Is that he said, it looks like Cody Rhodes, after 6 years, hasn't missed a step. Hey, Jimmy, did you miss the fact that he actually didn't stop wrestling? Or are we all supposed to pretend that WWE is the only place to go? Are we gonna play that game? Is that what we're supposed to be believing? Is that the nonsense that you're trying to shove into our heads? Is that wait oh yeah, he doesn't look like he's missed a step. Yeah, I wonder why that is. Right? I mean, can we at least even make like a distant reference to it? We don't have to say their company by name. I know they don't want to give free publicity out. I get that. But for Jimmy Smith to say that is just like, yeah, dude, no kidding. The guy's been in AEW wrestling. Anyway, so this match ended in a disqualification or a count out. It ended in a count out. The main event ends in a count out. Cody's third match ends in a count out. And it was because Kevin Owens was, I guess, put off by Seth calling him a fat ass. If anybody else caught that, I think that's what set Kevin off after Seth was yelling at him to get into the ring. And Kevin said, screw this. This is your fight, after Seth called him a fat ass. And then Kevin went up the ramp and left, and he got disqualified. So, boy, if I was in the arena, I'd be so angry. Now, I know they have matches after the show to make the crowd go home happy, and I understand that. But I don't want to say it wasn't a flat ending to Raw, but when your main event ends in a count out, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that's it, right? So, fine match. I think that Kevin Owens is now bowing out of this, and he's just going to stay on SmackDown for a while, at least until Ezekiel pops up next week, and then maybe you see Kevin Owens again and trying to disprove the Ezekiel theory. So that is Monday Night Raw in a nutshell. I think it was a decent show. I think it was a productive show, and I think that it was a show that set up WrestleMania Backlash really nicely and continued to do so. And so that's pretty much it for me, guys, on the Monday Night Raw review. Tomorrow, again, big day of recording, probably 2 shows being recorded. One is an interview, one is a mailbag. So send in those questions, mailbag@wwpodcast.com, as well as call us. You can leave a voicemail, and you guys know the number for that. But that is it for me, guys. Consider going VIP on our website with a video that I'll be posting soon about Austin at WrestleMania 39, which is coming straight from Stone Cold himself. And that's only available on our website and on Patreon for those in the SmackDown tier and higher. Make that clarification. So everybody, thanks so much for listening. As always, I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.